Hi, my friends. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you with us today in our journey through the Bible. It's Tim. You're a very grateful Bible teacher. Just happy as a clam to be here today. Our reading for today was in Nehemiah chapter 4, 5, and 6. And one of the things it brings to our attention is that the Christian life, whether you realize it or not, is a battleground. When Jesus talked about the devil, he called him the enemy. Have you ever noticed that when things in your life are seem to be going well, Satan will surprise you with some of his worst fiery darts? That's no accident, friends. Our spiritual enemy has been using that strategy for centuries because it works so well. And Nehemiah was experiencing in chapter 4. Um, he saw it at the walls of Jerusalem. Now, before this, his first three chapters that we read, he had the king's approval. He had financial backing. He arrived safely in Jerusalem. He surveyed the walls of the city to see what needed to be done. He motivated and organized the people. They were working with enthusiasm. Do you think it was time for Nehemiah to relax a little bit? I'll keep reading. When he arrived in Jerusalem, it was amazing to find out that there are some people who are not glad that he was there doing God's work. The opposition to the Lord's work took place on two levels. There was the human enemies that had to be dealt with, and at the same time, there was a spiritual battle going on against our spiritual enemy. Both were against God's work in the holy city, and both need to be dealt with. It starts in chapter 4 with the mockers. There's a man by the name of Sanballat that is mentioned more than once in this book. He mocked the Jews who were doing the work and working on this wall. And you read some of the mocking that was going on in the next few verses, but he enjoyed it. This was fun for him. And he was using it to try to stop the progress the Jews were making. And this was a continual problem for Nehemiah. Every day, this little group of mockers would gather anyone who would listen and slander God's people, even make things up sometimes. And as usual, Nehemiah's response was prayer. And we see him praying in verse 4. Lord, turn their reproach upon their own head. He even prayed, God, don't forgive them for this. We can appreciate two things about this prayer. First was the fact that was his first response. That should be the case for us. When we are under attack by our enemy, we don't need to bind Satan or um, try to fight against him somehow. He's more powerful than you are. He's smarter than you are. But we can take it directly to the Lord like Nehemiah did. He didn't exchange insults with the governor, but he went to the Lord. Secondly, we can see that he's completely honest with the Lord. He was upset, and he didn't try to hide that behind the veil of pious sounding words. He just brought that to the Lord. And he knew that the enemies who were mocking the Jews were actually mocking God. God takes it personally when his people are persecuted. That's why in Acts chapter 9, when the Pharisee Saul was going to Damascus to arrest more Christians, he encountered Jesus before he even arrived there at the city. And the Lord said to him, why are you persecuting me? I suppose Paul could have said, I'm not persecuting you. I'm after these miserable Christians there in this city. But Jesus takes it personally. If someone comes after you, he's coming after Christ. But we see here that their mocking didn't work. And so it turned to threats of violence. They were going to fight against Jerusalem. Verse 8 mentions that. Their plan was not an attack to actually capture the city. I don't think they even wanted the city, but to create confusion and hinder the work of rebuilding and convince people to just stop until there's a better time. And as a result, the people became discouraged. We see in Nehemiah chapter 4, Judah said, the strength of the bearers of the burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish so that we are not able to build the wall. There was a lot of debris left over from the destruction of the city that needed to be taken care of. Some of it they could use, most of it they probably just had to throw out. But made people think we can never complete this. I think in any ministry, there's always some rubbish that needs to be taken out on a regular basis. It could be a habit maybe that hinders God's work in your life or a relationship that's unhealthy. But if those things are allowed to continue, the work of God will seem impossible to you. That's why I would encourage you, let God deal with anything in your life that needs to be removed. Probably in prior days, the kind of opposition that they faced would mean the end of construction until times were better. But under Nehemiah's leadership, it simply meant that some workers are going to be assigned as guards. We see that in verse 9, and the work is going to go on. Well, I want you to consider today your enemy and what he may be trying to do in your life. Stand against the devil. We're told in Ephesians 4:26 and 27, be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, and neither give place to the devil. The Greek word place there is topos. It means a location on the map or an area of authority. That's what we're talking about here. We actually give the devil authority to do his worst in our lives through the way we treat each other. Consider that. We're told in James 4:7, submit yourselves unto God and resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Our relationships with other people give devil permission to attack us. And our relationship with God can hinder uh, his work and give the devil also permission to work in our lives. Meditate on that today, will you? Consider it and take up the fight. Well, keep in the Bible. Tomorrow's reading is also from Nehemiah, just 2 chapters tomorrow, chapter 7 and chapter 8. And so dig into those, and I'll look forward to seeing you again real soon. Have a great day, folks.